Hi, welcome back to my Back to Basics salon series, where in each video I bring you a basic technique, simplified and easy to follow at home. So whether you're a cosmetology student and looking to perfect your skills, or you're an avid at-home colorist, or you're trying this for the first time and want to be a little bit more well-versed in coloring, toning, and lightening your hair. So anyway, welcome. My name is Sylvia, if this is your first time here. And the first video I did in the series was all about lightening and proper foiling placement. So I showed you 4 different techniques to achieve kind of different looks, which is what we have here, which is completely untoned, just raw lift. So anyway, today we're going to be going in and toning those pieces that we lightened in our first video. If you haven't seen that, I recommend seeing that first, and I will leave a link for that in the description. So a few things to keep in mind with toner. First of all, what is it? Toner is a semi-permanent color that is applied to the hair. Now, of course, there are toner brands out there that are marketed as toners, but they're essentially just colors. Really, what a toner should do is just stain the hair after it's been lifted. Toner is not meant to replace where lift didn't happen correctly. Let me rephrase that. So if you've lifted the hair and it's still not as light as you want it to be, do not rely on the toner to fix that issue. Toner should never lift the hair, should only be depositing tones into the hair. I personally believe Redken Shades EQ toners are the most diverse and in terms of colors and shades to work with. And I also think in terms of like scientifically how good they are for the hair, they are the ones that were most scientifically formulated to come on the hair after the hair has been lightened, which means it's an acidic color, which then seals the hair. So when you bleach hair, it opens up the hair shaft to release that natural inner pigment. Then with tone, we go in and add the tones we want to correct and finish what the results were after. Now, choosing a toner. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky and where having some color or artisty background really helps, or maybe a professional can help you just formulating a good toner formulation for you. I offer virtual consultations where I meet with you, assess your hair, and help you formulate anything that you are looking to do at home. So if that's something that you're interested, I always have the email in the description box on how you can book that with me. I always want you to leave this salon series videos feeling like you really learned something and more comfortable to doing the step that you were, of course, looking to do. When you tone hair, in order to get that beautiful celebrity hair salon finish, is always to do a mixture of root smudging and all over toner. So a toner corrects tone, obviously, so you can just place it all over and it corrects the tone of the hair. Another way you can use it is in a slightly darker shade. You can add shadowing, you can correct bleed marks, you can create a lot more contrast and dimension without going in with permanent color, especially when it's not necessary. So a good rule of thumb, when toning, look at the level that you got with your lift. So say you're at a level 9 or higher. You're going to be toning with a bright blonde toner. Now, whether you want it to be more gold or more ash, that obviously is up to you. But always keep it around the level of the lift that you got. So say you lifted and you're at a level 8, so not really where you want it to be yet. Using a level 10 toner is not going to get you to a level 10. That toner is only formulated to tone at a level 10, so that means that your canvas needs to be bright enough for that toner to show up. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see done with toners, and that is using a toner that's way too light for what you're trying to tone and what you're trying to achieve. So, of course, depending on the brand, always follow either the level that you're at or at least one level darker. So we lifted to pretty good level 9, almost 10. So from the mid-lengths through the ends, I'm going to be toning that with a level 10. Now, if you notice on Shades EQ, the number always starts with a 0. What that 0 means is that it has 0 lift. So again, deposit color only. What level is that deposit going to be in? It's going to be in a level 10. And the P stands for the shade name. So P stands for Pearl, one of my favorite shades in the Shades EQ line in terms of toning your rooted area, your root smudge sections. There you can go as dark as the result you're looking to achieve. Now, how low you bring it, obviously that'll bring you more dimension. How dark you go, of course, will also give you more depth and more richness. So a good rule of thumb for your root smudge is at least 2 levels darker than what you lifted to. Now, 2 levels darker, this is great for that kind of all over blonde or someone that gets a lot of balayage or a lot of highlights and likes to feel really blonde, but still wants that softness at the root. No, I'm going with the shade NA, which stands for Natural Ash. This one is quite ashy, and the reason why I chose this because I want to talk a little bit about it. Now on this client, of course, because it isn't natural hair, she doesn't have any unwanted warmth, she doesn't have like redness or orange tones. But typically on human hair, we tend to get a lot of unwanted warmth at the roots, and so typically a more ashy shade in your root smudge is really beneficial. If you have a beautiful base that you already love, you're not looking to be super ashy, obviously you would go with a more neutral color for your root smudge. All right, now that we got a little overview on what a toner is, I'm gonna go through each section and show you how I apply the root smudge for each section. All right, so I've got my 7NA mixture ready to go. So we're gonna start with our first section that we've lightened. So as you can see, there's a little bit of bleeding here. It's kind of the only section that happened, and I'm glad it did, so we can kind of show you how to go about it. So starting there, I can just go in with the same formulation that I'm using on the root smudge, and that alone should be enough to kind of fix that. And the trick with this is that a little goes a long way. So typically also with color, especially the runnier or with toner, it has a tendency to run down. So really just tap as minimally as possible, and I promise that's going to give you a better effect. I think the natural instinct is to kind of just come down as far as possible, and that's really not necessary. But one thing to keep in mind too is if the line that you're creating as the root smudge, if it starts to feel really angular or like just a straight line, you can always just come and feather it through just in a few sections, and that alone will make it so much softer and break up that line. So this next section here is a full slice. As you can see, it's a lot brighter and more impactful. Now, the reason for doing a full slice method is typically when you're looking to get a ton of brightness. So if you're doing that, you probably are not going to want a huge root smudge, but obviously it's up to you. So same thing, you always want to just kind of start with tapping at the root, just very minimally. I typically like to leave at least a 1-inch kind of face framing piece, and then from there I kind of just like to drag it down just a little bit further. Another thing you can do is kind of create a V shape, so basically creating depth in the middle here. It'll kind of just look like highlights at the root, and then we'll blend into a nice solid blonde piece. Now with this next section, this is a little bit different, and where we either teased or we applied lightener a lot lower from the root already to create softness. With a section like this, you can basically just completely skip the root smudge if it looks soft enough. So as you can see with this one, it technically doesn't need it. And now moving on to our last section, our hairline. And so when we applied lightener in this area, I showed you a special technique, which is using micro sectioning and stacking the foils back to back in order to get that very soft, kind of really bright face framing piece. Because we got it close enough to the roots, it actually looks really clean and really soft. If this was a client that wants a root smudge all over, I would do it all over the head And then I would do this section last. I wouldn't necessarily skip it altogether. Once you do the root smudge everywhere else, this area will look a little bit too stark in comparison. So you definitely do want to also root smudge this area, but with a much, much lighter hand. So for this section, I would actually bring that section forward and kind of tone underneath first, and then just the lightest tap. And then bringing it up, then I would come in this section and just tap from this side as well. But as you can see, just micro, tiny section. As that's processing, we can go ahead and mix our all-over toner. For the all-over toner, we definitely need less precision, so we can definitely add that as that root smudge is processing. So once again, same technique. I'm going to be starting in all the other sections, working on the side, the back, and then doing the front face framing pieces last. All right, now we've got our level 10P mixture. So meeting that root smudge, you want to start there and work your way down. For this step, you can even apply this with a bottle instead of a more precise bowl and brush. I personally just love the control a bowl and a brush gives me, and that's what I like doing. But as you can see with this step, you can go a lot faster and you're not trying to get it in a very specific area. You're just looking to apply it on quickly. Ideally, again, if you want that like brighter front piece, I would only let that all over toner sit in the front for about 5 minutes. Another thing to consider, a lot of us through coloring and lightening, our ends get really porous. So another thing that you can do on your ends, if you tend to get really dark ends, is leave that toner out. And again, only apply to those ends in the last 5 minutes. So applying toner to those ends in the last 5 minutes when you do the front would be ideal. And now we're gonna finish letting everything process and we're ready to shampoo and condition. So once you've shampooed out your toner and root smudge, now would be a great time to go in with a treatment. One of my favorites is the K18 molecular mask. This would be a great time to incorporate this into your shampoo routine. I typically recommend doing a treatment on the hair after the hair has been toned so that the hair can easily receive the toner so that you get the benefits of locking in that color and super healthy restored hair. All right, I hope you guys found this information helpful. In the next salon Back to Basics series, I will be doing a basics on cutting and really breaking down the basics of cutting so that basically from there you can kind of create the cut and style you're after while following the basic rules and avoiding major mistakes that we've all seen on social media. And because this 90s bob is super in and I feel like more and more people are chopping their hair at home, I feel like the next one might be really helpful. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.